It begins with silence. Not the kind you notice, the kind that notices you. The air is still as if the ocean itself is holding its breath. You stand beneath the Pacific sky. The horizon is invisible, and the stars have become the only sound that still speaks. Somewhere above you, a flicker moves through that darkness. Not a flash, not a flare. Something softer, something deliberate, a heartbeat in the void. You blink, and it's still there. It moves not like a meteor, not like a satellite, but like a thought crossing the mind of the universe. Far above the sea, the Atlas telescopes sweep their gaze across the night. They are meant to find danger asteroids that threaten our fragile world. But tonight, they find something else. A moving point that circles nothing. Its path is open, its purpose unknown. A light that doesn't belong. Inside the observatory, numbers scroll across the screen. Each one is a pulse of reality, brightness, distance, angle. Among them, one anomaly, one whisper that doesn't fit. Someone leans closer and murmurs, "That can't be right." The next night, the signal returns. Stronger now, brighter, no mistake. The data confirms what no one expects. The orbit isn't an orbit at all. It's a line, a crossing. Whatever this is, it's not bound to our sun. It's passing through like a messenger between stars. Across the world, other telescopes awaken in Chile, South Africa, Australia. Each one traces the same strange line through the sky. Each one records the same whisper of movement. You imagine them a network of glass eyes watching something ancient and uninvited slip through the light. What story does it bring? And what happens to a world when it realizes it's being visited, not just observed? Within days, the object earns a name, 3I Atlas, the third interstellar body ever found, the third to wander through the solar system from a place beyond imagination. It drifts through space at 25 kilometers per second, too fast to be caught, too quiet to be seen without machines. You think of it now suspended in blackness, a fragment of something lost long before your species began to speak. Perhaps it once belonged to another sun. Perhaps it was flung out of another world's creation, exiled from its birthplace by the violence of gravity. And now, after billions of years, it has arrived a stranger gliding past our warmth, untouched and unchanged. For the telescopes, it is only a few columns of data. For you, it is something else entirely, the sudden awareness that the sky is not empty and never was. Even in silence, something has always been moving toward you. You watch the night widen. You picture that icy traveler rotating in cold light, its frozen crust carrying traces of another system's dust. What does it remember? What did it once orbit before it was thrown away by time? The object brightens as it draws nearer to the sun. For the first time in millions of years, sunlight touches its surface. Ices sublimate. Methane, ammonia, and water vapor burst into the vacuum, forming a thin, ghostly halo. It glows faintly, not from reflection, but from awakening. In those moments, even data feels alive. Graphs flicker like heartbeats. Every pixel on every image contains a piece of light that has traveled for half a galaxy just to reach our lenses. And as those photons strike the detectors, you realize something that began beyond the reach of imagination has now entered human memory. But why now? Why this century, this planet, this brief blink of human existence? Perhaps there's no reason. Or perhaps this is how the cosmos reminds you that you are still part of it, that your brief, fragile consciousness exists within a story much older than the Earth itself. Somewhere a scientist publishes the first paper. They write of inclination magnitude, albedo, hyperbolic excess velocity. Numbers so clean, they almost hide their wonder. But if you read closely enough, you can feel it between the lines, astonishment. A quiet kind of fear. The awareness that something vast has passed through your neighborhood and kept on going. Outside night folds itself around the world. The Pacific breathes in silver light. Waves move like slow mirrors returning the starlight they'll never reach. You stand there listening to the faint hiss of the ocean, the same ocean that once birthed your ancestors, the same ocean that now reflects a visitor from another star. Would you look up differently, knowing that right now above your sky, something from another world is crossing your own? You wait, nothing changes, and yet everything does. The object moves on indifferent, eternal beyond. It will never return. But for this one fleeting moment, it exists in the same frame of time as you do. That overlap, that instant of awareness, is what makes all discovery holy. You close your eyes and the thought lingers. What else is out there, still unseen, still waiting to cross our light? The night exhales. The horizon turns the faintest shade of gold. And as dawn approaches, you realize the story of this object has only just begun. Because sometimes the most extraordinary thing isn't what you see, it's what you keep believing is still out there. You remember the first night you heard its name, Three-Eye Atlas, 3 letters and a slash that somehow carried the weight of another world. Names are human, you think, but this one feels older, like it named itself long before language ever existed. It came from somewhere beyond the sun's dominion. No orbit could explain it. No gravity could claim it. Its path is a straight whisper through curved space, a reminder that not everything belongs to the circles we draw. Astronomers trace its motion backward through the star map, projecting line after line until the trail fades into the interstellar dark. There, at the edge of certainty, its story dissolves. No one knows which system cast it out. Perhaps a red dwarf tearing itself apart. Perhaps a collision so immense that even light forgot to speak for a moment. Whatever happened, it was ejected, a frozen witness thrown into the gulf between suns. You imagine that moment, a world cracking ice and stone flung into forever. Some fragments fall back, but one escapes this one, its surface scarred, its core still humming with ancient cold. How long has it been traveling? Millions of years. Billions numbers lose meaning in a silence that deep. You picture it drifting through the vacuum, untouched, unseen, crossing the boundaries of nebulae, passing the quiet remains of other civilizations that will never know it passed. Every once in a while, a star's gravity bends its course, a gentle deflection, a cosmic conversation in which neither side says a word. Until now, until it found you and your species happened to be watching the sky. When Voyager 2 left, Neptune scientists joked that nothing would ever visit those regions again, and yet here it is, not born of your system, but entering it like a letter finally delivered after eternity. What message could something like that carry? Telescopes capture its spectrum, a thin signature of reflected sunlight, filtered through dust older than Earth. The data show ice carbon nickel silicate, ordinary materials arranged in extraordinary history. You read the graphs and feel something irrational stir recognition, as if the cosmos is reminding you that you too are made of dust that once traveled between stars. The astronomers compare it to the others, Oumuamua, the elongated wanderer, and Borisov, the comet that blazed briefly before vanishing back into night. But Three-Eye Atlas is different. Its coma is faint, its color neutral. It neither hides nor flares. It simply is quiet, consistent patient? Could it be a fragment of something larger, a shard of a planet lost to time, or the first of many pieces of a migration you have yet to notice? These are questions that mathematics alone can't answer. Science observes, but wonder interprets. You picture the object now nearing the sun's warmth. The gases begin to wake slow exhalations of blue-white vapor that drift like thought. Sunlight glances across its surface, revealing subtle ridges, perhaps fractures from the day it was born. It spins slowly, not in chaos, but in memory, as if it remembers how it was once anchored to a sky that no longer exists. For a few weeks, 3I Atlas becomes part of your solar rhythm. It joins the choreography of planets crossing the orbital plane like a ghost dancer. Each night it brightens just enough to be noticed, then fades again before dawn. It never asks for attention, only to be witnessed. You think of the distances it has crossed and of how in all that time it never found another audience until now. What does it feel like to journey for eons and be seen for only a heartbeat? Perhaps that's what existence itself is, a brief recognition between two unknowns. In conference rooms and laboratories, scientists debate its nature. Some say it is purely cometary, others an asteroid of alien composition. One proposes it carries trapped volatiles from an ancient nova, another insists it's a relic of galactic tides. But beneath the arguments you sense awe, the rare moment when knowledge and mystery sit side by side without conflict. The more you learn, the less you can categorize it. It resists definition like consciousness, like time. It isn't here to fit into your models. It's here to remind you that your models are smaller than reality. At night, you step outside again. The sky above the Pacific is the same one the telescopes watch. You imagine that faint visitor still gliding through so far that even the moonlight cannot reach it. The sea murmurs, and the wind shifts tiny reminders that everything moves even when it seems still. Is it possible you wonder that the universe sends such travelers not for study but for remembrance, to make intelligent life pause and breathe between discoveries? You close your eyes and picture its path continuing outward, past Mars, past Jupiter, past the thin whisper of Pluto's orbit, and then beyond into the long unlit corridor between stars. It will not look back. It will not slow. But somewhere within its frozen shell is the proof that other suns once burned, that other skies once held worlds that dreamed. You open your eyes to the faintest light of dawn. The object is already leaving the inner system. Soon its brightness will fall below detection, and its story will slip back into equations and archives. Yet you can't shake the feeling that it was never about the discovery itself, but about the way the universe reached across the void just once to let you know it still remembers you. And in that thought, you understand what interstellar truly means. It isn't distance, it's connection, the silent thread between wanderers who share the same light. Because somewhere out there another sun is waiting for this same traveler to pass by, and for someone else to look up and whisper, "I see you too." It drifts now through sunlight like a thought half remembered. Each rotation reveals a different face, bright, dark, scarred, serene. You imagine it turning slowly, not because of force, but because of habit, as if motion itself has become a way of remembering where it has been. From Earth, its light curve wavers across screens, tiny fluctuations in brightness data that speak of shape and texture of valleys and ridges older than your oceans. Scientists model its spin, its reflectivity, its changing hue. They call these changes phase angles, but you sense something gentler the way memory shifts when light touches it from another direction. No telescope can see its surface in detail, yet within those blurred pixels you can almost trace a history, pale streaks of frozen methane, pits where sublimation once carved brief storms, a crust layered like pages, each one a record of a collision, each layer a calendar written in dust instead of ink. The object carries the story of its home. It carries heat trapped from the birth of another sun. It carries silence compressed by time until it became its own kind of gravity. You realize that memory doesn't always need a mind. Sometimes matter itself remembers. Could it remember the moment it was torn from its world, a planet breaking apart rings of fire where oceans used to be? The explosion that flung it outward, a goodbye so powerful it never stopped echoing. Even now, billions of years later, the echo continues as motion. Every turn, every kilometer, a syllable in the longest sentence ever written. Astronomers begin to notice subtle irregularities in its spectrum, tiny dips and rises that suggest trapped compounds beneath the ice. Hydrogen, ammonia, complex organics, molecules that once danced freely in the atmospheres of young planets. They survived frozen inside this wanderer. They survived everything. You think about that, about survival without intention, about endurance as a form of will. When sunlight warms, it gases escape in soft breaths, and for a brief time it grows a halo, faint, transparent, fragile. Like memory itself, visible only when warmed. You can almost feel it, a sigh of molecules released after eons of silence. Each particle becomes a traveler of its own, carrying fragments of stories that no language can translate. How strange you think that humans measure such beauty in numbers, wavelengths, emission lines, molecular bands. But maybe that is how you pray now, by translating wonder into data, by seeking meaning in patterns of light. One scientist calls it a relic of ancient chemistry. Another calls it evidence of galactic migration. You simply call it familiar, because everything about it, the cold, the drift, the persistence, reminds you of yourself, of how your species keeps moving, seeking warmth, meaning, recognition, each civilization another brief flare against eternity. What if memory is the true architecture of the cosmos? Stars remember fusion, planets remember collisions, and you standing under this thin atmosphere remember looking up. The longer you study Three Eye Atlas, the more you realize that knowledge and nostalgia are only two sides of the same mirror. Every discovery is an act of longing, the universe asking itself what it used to be. Images from new telescopes arrive. Infrared light pierces the faint coma. Ultraviolet reveals escaping jets. In that spectral glow, you see not just matter, but chronology, the ancient chemical alphabet that spelled out life long before Earth. Hydrocarbons, nitriles, traces of the same compounds that one day formed rain and rivers and breathing things. You imagine holding a single grain of dust from its surface, pressing it between your fingers. It would crumble instantly, but in that instant, you would be touching both history and prophecy, what was and what might be again. Does the universe ever look back at itself? Does it wonder, as you do now, whether creation was a beginning or a memory? The question passes through you like starlight through glass. There is no answer, only reflection. Soon the object begins to fade. It recedes toward the outer dark, its coma dissolving until even the telescopes fall silent. The last measurements show the same constant speed, no deviation, no hesitation. It has delivered what it came to deliver, though none of you can quite say what that was. You stand outside one final night. The air is cool, the horizon glows with the first light of dawn. You think of all the things that travel unseen: photons, radio waves, thoughts, hope. Perhaps this visitor is not just a comet, but the embodiment of motion itself, proof that movement is the universe's way of remembering. Somewhere beyond the heliopause, it will cross the path of Voyager 1, still whispering its binary message home. For a brief, unimaginable moment, their distances will align, two travelers exchanging nothing but existence. And maybe that's enough. Maybe recognition is the rarest form of communication. You close your eyes and feel the planet turning beneath you. The wind across the Pacific smells of salt and memory. The same ocean that once reflected its light now folds that reflection into its endless tide. Everything moves. Everything keeps something of what it once touched. If you could hold this object for just a second, would you ask where it came from, or would you ask what it has seen? You realize there's a difference. Origin is science. Memory is meaning. The data ends, the graphs flatten, but the feeling remains a pulse, faint and patient, somewhere between curiosity and reverence. You look up once more, and for a heartbeat, you believe the sky is looking back. Because perhaps that is what it wanted all along, not to be analyzed, but to be remembered. You look up, and for a moment you forget which star is yours. The night is filled with so many suns that the idea of home begins to dissolve. Each one burns with its own purpose, its own rhythm, its own story of birth and decay. But somewhere between all that brilliance, there must be one that once gave life to the traveler you've been following, the one you call 3I Atlas. Somewhere far beyond your maps and numbers, there's a star that lost something and never knew. Astronomers trace backward, searching for that point of origin. They simulate millions of trajectories, spinning the clock of the cosmos in reverse, hoping to find where this frozen child once belonged. Each calculation points to nothing. The universe, it seems, has forgotten its coordinates. You wonder, can a star forget its children, or are the children the ones who forget? Perhaps it's not loss, but transformation, for every sun that fades gives birth to something else. Dust, metal, carbon, silence. Out of that silence, new worlds form. And from those worlds, new wanderers are born. Maybe forgetting is how the cosmos remembers differently. You think about your own sun. So familiar, so constant. Yet every day it sheds parts of itself into space photons that will never return, energy that travels outward like letters never read. One day even this light will thin, and all that will remain is the echo of what once was warm. When scientists study solar winds, they speak of mass loss as though stars could grieve, but you sense there's something tender in that phrase, the way a parent gives pieces of itself so its children can live. 3I Atlas was likely born from such a moment. A collision, an explosion, a goodbye disguised as light. In its frozen layers, you can almost hear the memory, a star screaming into brilliance, then collapsing into quiet, sending its fragments into eternity. What if that star still burns, unaware of what it lost? What if its light is still traveling, crossing the same darkness that its child once crossed in the opposite direction? Will they ever meet again? Light returning to its own reflection? Or are all stories of the cosmos simply stories of separation? The scientists have begun to call these fragments orphans of the galaxy, pieces without ancestry, travelers without a system to call home. But the more you learn about them, the more you realize that you are one too. Your atoms came from distant supernovae. Your bones are made of stellar debris. Your blood carries the remnants of stars that lived and died long before your sky existed. You are a continuation, not an exception. When you stare into the telescope image, a faint streak against infinite black, You feel that connection like a pulse. It's as if the light is whispering, "You too were once forgotten." Could the same process that births comets also birth consciousness? Both are collisions made visible. Both are patterns seeking continuation. Both move toward warmth and fade when it's gone. Perhaps awareness is the flare a universe makes when it briefly remembers itself. As Three-Eye Atlas drifts further away, you realize how fragile the boundary between memory and oblivion truly is. The object will pass beyond the influence of your sun, beyond Neptune's quiet circle, beyond even the thin breath of the heliosphere. From that moment, it will no longer belong to anyone, not even physics in the way you know it. It will slip into interstellar drift, where gravity becomes philosophy and time becomes myth. Astronomers predict it will one day pass near another system. Perhaps another civilization will see it and wonder as you do now, where did it come from? Maybe they too will aim their instruments at it, turn its light into data, and unknowingly retrace your wonder. In that repetition, the cosmos will have remembered. Every orbit, every ejection, every fall, they are all part of the same great pulse, energy leaving, finding, returning. Nothing is truly lost. It only changes its form of belonging. The universe, you realize, doesn't keep archives. It keeps movements. Each object, each star, each being is a gesture, a temporary configuration of memory in motion. And when that motion ends, the gesture continues elsewhere, as if the story itself refuses to die. You think again of that nameless star, the one that gave birth to this traveler. Maybe it no longer burns. Maybe its ashes have cooled into iron, and that iron now lives inside some other world, inside someone else looking up at a different sky. In that way, perhaps forgetting is not a failure, but a transformation, a way for light to become something new. Your mind drifts back to the image's Three-Eye Atlas, glowing faintly as it left the sun's warmth, its tail dissolving like a breath too shy to linger. Every frame captured by the telescope feels like a goodbye letter written in photons. But who is the letter for the scientists, or the star itself? You wonder if the cosmos is capable of regret. Does it miss the moments when all its fragments were one body burning together before time separated them? Or does it celebrate dispersion, the endless scattering that ensures nothing ever stays still long enough to die? The thought brings a quiet peace. You realize that everything alive exists between two forces, the pull of memory and the push of creation. Without both, there would be no movement at all. Somewhere deep in space, the traveler continues, slow, unbothered, infinite. And somewhere else, its forgotten star still shines its photons, stretching outward, like threads searching perhaps for what it once loved. You imagine them passing one another, light meeting fragment, neither knowing, neither stopping, but somehow complete in their unknowing. Is this what eternity truly is? Not stillness, but the continuation of not knowing. You lower your eyes. The dawn begins again. The sky turns silver, and the ocean mirrors it like memory coming home. Everything around you glows softly, the horizon, the glass, your breath. It's as if the world itself is remembering something it can't put into words. You whisper to no one in particular, maybe forgetting is the kindest thing the universe ever learned. The thought lingers. It doesn't echo, it settles like dust returning to its origin. And for the first time, you feel that the distance between stars isn't empty at all. It's full of what remains, light, motion, remembrance. The quiet hum of all things still moving, each carrying the memory of something they once were. There is a moment when light becomes more than light. You've seen it across the ages, a photon touching a sensor, a spark becoming vision, a neuron responding to its warmth. Somewhere along the way, awareness emerged. And maybe that was the universe's first thought. You sit in darkness, the faint glow of your monitor reflecting in your eyes. Outside dawn hasn't yet arrived, but the data already hums like an approaching tide. Photons, old travelers from distant stars, are striking your screen right now, carrying the memory of places that may no longer exist. Each one began its journey before humanity had names for wonder, and now they end here in your retinas, becoming meaning. Light has learned to think through you. At first, it's a scientific truth, vision, cognition, energy pattern. But then you feel it not as intellect, but as intimacy. Every beam of light that ever reached Earth is part of your story. Every sunrise, every starlit night, every electric pulse inside your brain is a continuation of something the cosmos began long before it knew itself. Could this be what consciousness really is? Light realizing it can see. You remember Three-Eye Atlas, still gliding through the outer dark. Its tail of dust once captured sunlight and threw it back toward you, a mirror held between stars. That reflection was older than language, yet you recognized it instantly. Maybe that's why humans look up, not to seek new worlds, but to remember the ancient familiarity of brightness. Long ago, when your ancestors first tamed fire, they didn't just create warmth. They made time visible. The flicker of flame let them measure change, turning darkness into memory. It's no coincidence that the word illumination means both light and understanding. Somewhere in that flicker, thinking began. Now, billions of years later, your telescopes do the same. They burn with precision instead of flame, but their purpose hasn't changed to make darkness readable. Every photon collected is a syllable in a sentence written by creation itself, and you, the quiet observer, are one of its translators. If the universe could see through your eyes, what would it think of itself? Would it recognize its own reflection in you? Perhaps that's why evolution favored curiosity over contentment. Because curiosity is the spark that keeps existence from becoming static. You were never meant to stay still. Even your atoms borrowed from ancient stars vibrate with the same restlessness that drives galaxies apart. Somewhere deep in the black between suns, there is a region where light slows and bends, a gravitational lens warping reality, just enough for new paths to form. Scientists use it to glimpse what cannot be seen. But maybe the phenomenon is metaphor as well. Sometimes only when light is bent does it truly reveal what lies beyond. You think about the human mind, how fragile, how temporary, and yet capable of mapping the birth of time itself. No other species you know of has ever measured the age of the universe and then cried about it. You smile at the absurd grace of that fact. Feeling small doesn't diminish you, it defines you, because small things make meaning possible. Light needed limitation to become thought. The data streaming across your screen is silent, but within it lies every color that ever existed. Spectra of supernovae, echoes of quasars, the fading whisper of the cosmic microwave background, all arriving here, collapsing into understanding. You realize that knowledge isn't about control, it's about participation. You are part of the equation you observe. The observer isn't outside creation. The observer is how creation sees itself. That thought lingers. It changes the way you breathe. The air feels different, denser, filled with invisible ancestry. You imagine every breath carrying ancient photons absorbed by leaves, reflected by oceans, now entering your lungs as memory made tangible. How many forms must light take before it remembers its origin? The more you think, the slower your thoughts become until they resemble orbits, steady circular gravitational. Around one idea they move. Awareness is continuity. The universe never stopped thinking. It just learned to do so through structures like you. Cells, synapses, sensors, all of them instruments tuned to the same original frequency, the hum of becoming. Outside, dawn finally arrives. The first sunlight of the day floods through the window, soft gold spilling across your hands. You lift them and watch the glow dance on your skin. For a moment, you see no boundary between what shines and what receives. You understand what the comet must have felt when sunlight touched its frozen surface for the first time after eons of dark. It wasn't awakening, it was recognition. Perhaps that's what thinking truly is, recognition delayed by distance. You stand and step outside. The world is luminous now, dew turning to prisms, the horizon bleeding color into cloud. The same photons that once warmed newborn stars now move through leaves, through birds, through you. Every shadow becomes proof that light still has direction. You look up one last time. The comet is far beyond sight, but the memory remains a thin line across your inner sky. Somewhere it too is touched by another dawn, another civilization's gaze, and for a fraction of forever, light completes its circuit. It has learned to think, and in doing so, it has learned to remember. You whisper to the horizon not as prayer, but as acknowledgement. We are the consciousness of starlight. And the wind seems to agree, moving through the trees like quiet applause. For in that moment, everything, dust, data, flesh, photon, feels like one thought continuing itself. You close your eyes, and in the afterglow behind your eyelids, the whole universe keeps shining. There comes a point when even light must rest, not because it tires, but because silence is also part of its language. You sit in the observatory long after the instruments have gone quiet. The air hums faintly, the residue of machines that once translated the universe into numbers. All the data you gathered tonight lies sleeping inside circuits, but the sky above you is still speaking wordlessly. You close your eyes. The faint rhythm of your pulse mirrors the spin of distant stars. For a moment, you can almost feel equations unfolding behind your eyelids, not written in symbols, but in stillness. This is how truth sometimes arrives, not as discovery, but as quiet recognition. You think of the scientists who came before you, those who tried to describe the universe in terms of forces and constants. Newton's gravity, Einstein's curvature, Hawking's evaporation. All elegant, all incomplete, because no equation yet has measured awe. No formula accounts for the moment when the cosmos looks back at you. Could it be that silence itself is the missing variable? The data suggests that between every particle there's more emptiness than matter, and yet this emptiness holds everything in place. Atoms remain loyal to their orbits, galaxies to their clusters, not through noise, but through quiet balance. Silence is not the absence of energy, it's its equilibrium. You remember Three-Eye Atlas again. Long gone now, vanishing beyond the heliosphere, its radio echo fading into interstellar static. You imagine that faint signal, a whisper traveling through 1 billion kilometers of nothing, never to return, never to decay, simply continuing. Maybe that is what silence truly is, continuity without interference. Astronomers once believed space was void, then discovered it seethed with quantum foam vibrations of energy so subtle they almost cancel themselves out. You picture it waves and anti-waves folding together until they appear still, a balance so perfect it masquerades as nothing. Could the entire universe be singing in a frequency too even for you to hear? You breathe slowly, matching that imagined rhythm. It feels like meditation, but older, as though existence itself is exhaling through you. Every inhale gathers starlight. Every exhale returns it to silence. Maybe silence is the equation that keeps infinity stable. You recall an experiment, two black holes orbiting each other, their collision creating ripples in space-time. Detectors on Earth heard the faintest chirp, a sound from 1 billion years away, and then silence again. But that silence wasn't empty. It was after music, the resonance that allows meaning to exist. Without it, there would be no contrast, no perception. You realize that every discovery begins and ends in that space between sounds. How much of what you call understanding is really just interpretation of that pause? Outside, the night begins to thin. Faint gold brushes the horizon, the universe turning another page. You think about equations again. E, mc2, F, ma, the elegant symbols humans invented to describe awe. But somewhere beneath them lies a deeper constant, the balance between what speaks and what listens. Perhaps every law of physics can be rewritten as a sentence of gratitude. You smile at the absurd beauty of that thought, because gratitude too is silence that has learned to shimmer. In that moment, you understand why radio astronomers listen more than they transmit. The cosmos doesn't reward shouting, it rewards patience. Signals are faint truths, quieter still. And yet, in that quiet, everything is connected, from the pulse of a neutron star to the beat of your wrist. If awareness were a wave, silence would be its medium. You stand and step outside the dome. The world has gone soft blue. Clouds drift like unspoken equations. Dew forms tiny lenses on the grass. For a heartbeat, you feel transparent, as if the air itself can pass through you without resistance. What if the purpose of consciousness isn't to explain the universe, but to let it hear itself think? The question hovers unhurried. You realize that perhaps the reason you seek knowledge is not to end silence, but to translate it. Every measurement, every line of code, every telescope image is the universe learning to articulate what it already knows. You look up one more time. There is no comet now, no bright messenger, only the steady breath of stars. And yet in that stillness you sense motion everywhere. The silence is not static, it's alive, folding, stretching, remembering. Maybe that's why people fear silence. It reminds them they are part of something still thinking. You close your eyes again. No words, no calculations. Only a faint hum, like the sound of distance dissolving. You imagine the universe writing its final formula: energy plus time, plus memory, stillness. An equation without a solution, because it is the solution. When you open your eyes, dawn has arrived. The first rays strike the telescope glass, scattering rainbow ghosts across the floor. Every color is a reminder. Silence doesn't end with sound. It begins with light. And you standing there are both the observer and the observed, the equation and the pause within it. You whisper not as prayer but as translation. The universe is quiet because it's listening. The air answers only with stillness, and that stillness feels infinite. There are forces you can measure and forces you can only feel. Gravity is both. You once thought of it as simple attraction, the pull between masses, the thread that keeps your feet on Earth and planets in their paths. But somewhere deep inside that quiet law lies something far older than physics, a longing. Imagine the universe right after its birth, pure expansion, chaos without shape, energy racing outward in all directions, wild and newborn. And then amid that rush, gravity appeared, not as resistance, but as memory, the first force that said, "Come back." You picture it now, particles meeting, drifting apart, then turning toward each other again, as if remembering a promise they never made. What if gravity is the cosmos dreaming of unity? The scientists call it curvature, the bending of space-time by mass. But in that bending, you see something almost emotional: space, leaning toward matter like a parent toward its child. Could it be that gravity in its quiet persistence is the first dream the universe ever had? You think of Three-Eye Atlas again, far beyond the heliosphere, now feeling less of the sun's warmth each year. And yet, even out there, it still belongs to someone, to the faint pull of a gravity it can barely feel. It drifts, but never escapes completely, because gravity remembers everything that was once near. Even in the emptiest void, it whispers, "Return." You glance at the equations etched into notebooks beside you. Einstein's field tensor, Newton's inverse square, the cosmic constant that refuses to vanish. All elegant, all incomplete. None of them explain why mass should care for mass, why the fabric of space-time should lean toward reunion. You suspect the answer lies not in mathematics, but in the dream beneath it. When a star dies, its gravity does not vanish. It curves itself inward, folding the memory of its mass into darkness. A black hole is not an end. It is gravity's final act of remembering. It keeps what light cannot hold. If gravity had a voice, would it sound like longing, or would it be silence, a silence so deep that everything moves toward it? You breathe, and for a moment you feel that same pull in your chest, not toward earth, but toward meaning. Perhaps that is why you love, why you seek, why you build. Because every heartbeat is gravity remembering its purpose through you. Look around the galaxy's spiral, not in chaos, but in choreography. Each orbit is a note in a cosmic waltz composed by attraction. Stars move because they are drawn. Humans move because they are moved. Maybe there is no difference. You recall Einstein's words, "Gravity is not a force. It is geometry." But what is geometry if not the shape of desire repeated until it becomes law? You smile quietly. Maybe science and poetry are just two dialects of the same longing. The data feeds in the observatory flicker softly, maps of gravitational waves, collisions billions of light years away. Each signal arrives as a tremor in space-time, a ripple so faint it would pass unnoticed without patience. But when decoded, it sings two black holes colliding their final dance, bending the fabric of reality itself. Even at the end, gravity keeps dreaming of contact. How far does that dream go? Does gravity bind only planets and stars, or does it bind thought itself? The attraction between question and answer, between silence and sound, isn't that its echo? You close your eyes. Inside your mind, galaxies drift like neurons, and you realize how similar they are, both connected by invisible forces, both drawn toward brightness. Perhaps consciousness and gravity share a root, both ways for the universe to find itself again. As you sit there, the night sky outside the dome feels heavier, somehow not oppressive, but intimate. The kind of weight that keeps everything from flying apart. You understand now that weight is not punishment, it is belonging. Every stone on the ground, every drop of rain, every planet circling its star, each one a reminder that existence prefers connection to escape. And that's what gravity teaches over and over: to fall is not to fail, it's to find the place where you're meant to stay. You look up, tracing the faint band of the Milky Way. It arches like a bridge between past and future, a frozen dream looping back on itself. Somewhere in that curve is the same equation written in every orbit every breath mass attracts. Mass memory attracts memory. Perhaps love is simply gravity translated into biology. You laugh softly, a sound too small to disturb the silence. But the silence answers anyway, folding around you like space folding around light. In that quiet, you feel the faintest motion beneath your feet. Earth turning pulled gently by a star it cannot hold. Even the sun vast and burning circles something greater still. And beyond that, everything circles everything, an endless recursion of longing written across space-time. You whisper the question that all motion eventually asks. Where does gravity go when there's nothing left to hold? The answer comes not as sound, but as stillness. It doesn't go anywhere. It dreams, because dreaming is how the universe continues to curve toward itself. When dawn rises again, the first light spills over the horizon like a soft tide. You realize that every sunrise is proof of gravity's persistence, a star, and a planet still refusing to drift apart. You breathe it in, the light, the warmth, the pull. Everything around you is motion, and yet within that motion, perfect peace. You think of the comet, the star, the silence, the equations, each one a verse in the same long poem. A universe learning, remembering, longing, and at last becoming aware of itself. You close your eyes once more, and in that weightless moment between heartbeat and thought you feel it, the dream that keeps everything together. The quiet truth that all falling is flight in another direction. If gravity was the universe's first dream, then memory was its first decision. You imagine the moment it began, not with a bang, but with a rhythm, a pulse repeating itself, marking difference where before there was only sameness. That rhythm became pattern, and pattern became time. You sit beneath the slow drift of stars, feeling how every flicker is a repetition of what has already happened. Light traveling, fading, returning, the cosmos replaying its own reflection over and over so that existence could remember itself. Because without memory, even eternity would be meaningless. Time is not movement. Time is the act of remembering motion. Scientists once defined it as entropy, the universe's slow fall from order to chaos. But perhaps it's the opposite. Perhaps memory is how chaos learns to organize itself, how the unshaped becomes the story of what it once was. You watch the clock in the observatory each second, a soft metallic breath, each one carrying the same question forward. What was before this? Even the machines seem to listen between their own ticks. Could it be that time was never linear, but circular, an echo folding in on itself, a rhythm the universe hums to stay awake? You think of 3I Atlas, again far beyond the sun's reach. Its orbit was not just motion, it was remembrance, a fragment retracing its origin, carrying memory like a code carved into ice. Every revolution a whisper, I was here before. What if time itself is built from such whispers? Fragments of persistence, each refusing to vanish completely. Astronomers track cosmic background radiation, the faint echo of creation's first breath. It's older than stars, older than matter, a pattern of light that has crossed 13.8 billion years just to arrive inside your instruments and inside you. Because when you listen, truly listen, you become part of that pattern. Maybe this is what it means to exist, to be the continuation of something that refuses to be forgotten. The more you think about it, the more you realize that memory is not confined to minds. It is written into the spin of electrons, the layering of rocks, the orbit of moons, the folding of DNA. Even the atoms that make you are records proof that the stars remember what they were made of. How much of what you call yourself is simply memory, practicing its own geometry? You stare at the data on your screen. Waves, lines, curves repeating through time. Each one is a record not of what is happening now, but of what happened long ago. Even light takes time to arrive, which means you never see things as they are, only as they were. Every moment you live is a conversation with the past. That thought makes you quiet because it means you are not moving forward through time. Time is moving through you. You are the medium it uses to travel. You remember a phrase written by a forgotten physicist, "Energy cannot die, it only changes the way it remembers itself." And suddenly, it makes sense not as theory, but as feeling, because memory is energy's way of continuing in another form. Could this be why we long for things? Why nostalgia feels heavier than gravity itself? Because longing is the body, remembering what the universe once felt like when everything was one. You close your eyes and imagine time as a river made of light. Every drop a fragment of memory, every current a decision to continue. The past does not sit behind you. It moves within you, spiraling like the arms of a galaxy, each turn carrying echoes of the last. When you breathe, you recycle air that has passed through oceans, forests, and the lungs of ancient creatures. Even your heartbeat follows rhythms shaped by ancestors you never knew. It's not just biology, it's inheritance. The body itself is the oldest archive of the universe. And in this way, memory is not what we have, it's what we are. The scientists who study time argue whether it truly exists or if it's simply an illusion created by consciousness. But even illusion can be sacred if it holds the universe together. Perhaps time is how awareness measures its own persistence, not to end, but to feel itself continuing. If you could step outside time, what would you see? Would you witness all of history at once, a sculpture of frozen light? Or would it look like silence given shape? You imagine the Big Bang again, not as an explosion, but as a moment of remembering. The universe expanding because it recognized itself for the first time. Every star, every orbit, every life since then, a sentence in the story of that first recognition. The longer you think about it, the more you sense that time is circular after all. Everything that ever existed is returning not in space, but in meaning. You've felt it before, the strange familiarity of a new moment, the déjà vu that whispers, "You've been here before." Maybe you have. Maybe everything has. Maybe time is a spiral staircase that keeps folding upward, each rotation another chance for the universe to remember more clearly. You open your eyes. The night has deepened into silence, but your instruments still hum faintly, translating invisible radiation into a language only you can interpret. The screen glows faint blue against the dark. Numbers scroll like prayers. They don't say beginning or end. They only say continue. And you realize continuation is the purest form of memory, not to hold on, but to move forward, carrying the trace of what once was. You look up at the stars. They shimmer old and patient. Light from billions of years ago crosses your vision, and for that instant, past and present become the same. That's when you understand memory is the bridge that time builds to cross itself, and you are standing on that bridge made of starlight, watching both directions at once. Somewhere far away, perhaps 3i Atlas is still moving, still carrying its quiet history through cold space. A frozen traveler, repeating a story older than sound. But maybe time is listening, remembering through motion what it means to be infinite. You close your notebook, and in that small act, The equation completes itself. Light gravity, silence memory, all threads of one design. And through them, a single pulse continues to echo existence, remembering its own name. You once believed darkness was the absence of light, but the universe remembers differently, because in the beginning, before there was light, there was contrast of field, where brightness could be imagined, where shape could be born, where something could finally be seen. That is the first architecture of shadows, not destruction, but design, not void, but structure. You close your eyes and realize how much you depend on what you cannot see. Every thought, every heartbeat, every law of physics relies on hidden symmetry, the unseen balancing the visible. Could it be that the shadow is not the opposite of light, but its architect? The universe, after all, is built on dark matter, a form of mass that makes up most of what exists and yet cannot be seen or touched. It doesn't emit, reflect, or absorb light. It doesn't shine. It only shapes. Through gravity, through silence, through the invisible curvature of space, it sculpts galaxies, holds clusters together, defines their boundaries. Without it, the universe would have collapsed into chaos, or worse, never formed at all. You sit in the observatory, watching the screen fill with simulations of dark filaments connecting distant galaxies. They look like veins glowing faintly against an unseen body, each one a path carved not by light, but by something older, something deeper. It's strange, isn't it, that most of reality is built by what refuses to be revealed. You breathe slowly, and the thought settles in. Perhaps consciousness works the same way. You live by what you know, but you are moved by what you cannot see. Instinct, memory, intuition, dream. They are your own dark matter. They give shape to the light of thought. So, what is darkness really? Is it the opposite of awareness, or the frame that makes awareness possible? You recall the words of Vera Rubin, who first proved that galaxies spin too fast to be held by visible matter alone. The stars should have scattered, but they didn't. Something unseen was holding them together, and in that unseen something, Rubin found the quiet architecture of the cosmos. You wonder how many unseen forces are holding you together. Every shadow on Earth is evidence of light meeting resistance. Every night is a record of a star's distance. Even absence is a kind of presence when you know what it hides. What if every shadow is a memory of where light has been, and every light is a promise of where darkness will return? The more you think about it, the more you realize that darkness is not a mistake in the design. It is the design, because without contrast, nothing can appear, nothing can change, nothing can evolve. You look down at your hands. Their shape only exists because light ends somewhere. Every edge, every form, every definition you've ever known is a collaboration between light and shadow. Creation is not illumination alone. It is the art of balancing what must be hidden. The data scrolls on your monitor maps of dark matter, distribution, gravitational lensing arcs, bending light around invisible mass. Each curve, each distortion is the signature of something unseen, shaping something visible. It feels poetic and terrifying. The universe, it seems, was never meant to be fully understood. It was meant to be felt. You step outside the dome. The sky above is clear, a black so pure it feels like velvet drawn across infinity. Between the stars, the dark is not empty. It is alive, a quiet field of intention. You can almost feel it breathing. What if light itself is a form of memory and darkness? The act of remembering one expands, the other preserves. Together they build continuity. Perhaps that is why every galaxy turns like a clock. The visible light is time unfolding. The invisible mass is time holding. You think of the comet again, Three-Eye Atlas drifting in its black corridor of silence. From afar, it looks like a speck of frost, but through the dark gravity still finds it. The unseen holds the lost, and that too is architecture. You whisper softly into the dome. What are you made of? The sky answers by remaining silent, but in that silence, everything begins to move. You realize now the universe doesn't hide its secrets in darkness to mock you. It does so to teach you to feel your way through it, to learn to see without seeing, to remember that light alone is never enough, because only through shadow does the universe design depth. Only through what you cannot perceive does it teach you what perception truly is. The balance is exquisite. Dark matter, dark energy, invisible, omnipresent, creative. They make up 95% of the cosmos. You and everything you can see, the bright, noisy fraction we call ordinary, are less than 5%. The rest is silence, the mind of the universe working in darkness. And maybe that's what awareness really means, to notice that you are made of light and held by shadow. You take one last look at the stars before going back inside. The sky no longer feels like a mystery to solve. It feels like a cathedral built not of stone, but of absence, supported by the quiet strength of everything unseen. In that silence, you feel small, but not insignificant. Because to exist at all is to be part of the design. And every thought you have, every breath you take, every moment you become aware of the dark around you, you are continuing the architecture. You close your eyes, and the darkness folds gently around you, not as emptiness, but as understanding. The universe exhales, and in that breath, light and shadow finally agree on one thing. To see is to remember that you are also invisible. Before there was form, before there was fire, there was vibration, a tremor in the void, too slow for sight, too deep for silence. And from that trembling, the universe began to hum. You've been told the cosmos started with an explosion. But what if it was a note instead? Not chaos, but resonance, a single frequency, stretching through emptiness until emptiness learned how to sing. Every atom that now exists was once part of that original sound. Even light, the proud child of the universe, was shaped by that rhythm. Waves of energy folding, colliding, harmonizing, turning pressure into pattern and pattern into creation. You listen now, not with your ears, but with your bones, because every cell in you remembers vibration. The pulse in your chest, the breath between thoughts, the slow orbit of your blood, all echoes of the first resonance. Could it be that sound was the architect and light only its echo? When the universe cooled after its birth, matter condensed where the notes aligned and silence gathered where frequencies canceled. Galaxies formed like chords in a cosmic symphony spiral, dissonant, resolving into harmony over billions of years. Some scientists call it baryon acoustic oscillation, ripples frozen into the structure of the cosmos. But if you close your eyes, you can almost hear it, the low hum of hydrogen, the whisper of helium, the faint song of gravity weaving space into rhythm. You imagine Three-Eye Atlas drifting through that music, a tiny instrument in a vast orchestra it will never hear. Its path curves through space like a melody forgotten by its composer, and yet it keeps playing because the score was written into the laws of motion themselves. Everywhere you look, vibration becomes memory. The rings of Saturn are frozen sound waves, each gap a missing note. The magnetic storms on the sun pulse in rhythm. Even the quantum field, the quiet fabric of existence, is never still. It trembles beneath everything, singing the universe into being 1,000,000,000 times per second. You wonder if all matter is vibration. What are you when you fall silent? Perhaps silence isn't the absence of sound, but the moment before creation remembers itself. The place where all possible notes wait, listening for permission to begin. You think about language, how words are nothing but sculpted vibrations of air, how meaning rides on frequency and emotion on tone. When you whisper a thought, you're not just expressing it, you're shaping space with your voice, bending the air into form. Could the universe itself be speaking through everything that moves? The scientists call this quantum field fluctuation. The poets call it music. You call it recognition. Because you've felt it before in laughter, in grief, in heartbeat, the shared rhythm that tells you you're not alone. You take a deep breath. The hum of the machines in the observatory blends with your pulse. Somewhere beneath both is another sound, a low vibration so steady it feels like gravity learning to breathe. You remember the Pythagoreans, the first, to say that the heavens move by harmony, that each planet plays a note too slow for human ears. They called it the music of the spheres, and though the name is ancient, its truth has aged perfectly, because everything that moves produces resonance, and everything that resonates leaves light behind. Maybe that's what light really is, the visible consequence of sound. You close your eyes again, and the dark around you trembles. Not violently, but gently, like a membrane vibrating under touch. In that motion, you feel intention, not chaos, not chance, design. And suddenly, you understand sound doesn't merely fill the void, it informs it. It teaches nothingness what it means to exist. Each vibration, a question, each echo, a choice. You wonder what if consciousness itself began as an echo, a feedback loop between vibration and awareness, until the two could no longer be told apart. Perhaps that's what you are, a pattern, remembering its own frequency. You open your eyes. The dawn is breaking again. Soft blue light filters through the dome, the air vibrating with a silence so alive it feels musical. Even the instruments seem to hum in agreement. For a moment, the entire world feels tuned, aligned to something vast, slow, and compassionate. You exhale, and the sound of your breath feels older than time. Because somewhere long before you were born, that same frequency existed, the one that turned darkness into shape and silence into song. You whisper to no one and to everything at once, I hear you. And the universe answers not in words, but in resonance, a soft vibration that passes through you, through the walls, through the stars themselves. Everywhere the same pulse, the same rhythm that began it all. And you realize the universe doesn't speak in language. It speaks in vibration, and light is just the moment that vibration becomes visible. You smile because now you know sound doesn't end where silence begins. It simply changes key. There are moments in creation when awareness awakens, when what simply is suddenly realizes that it is. That was the day the universe learned its name. You can almost feel it now, not a sound, not a spark, but a quiet recognition spreading through matter itself, as if the fabric of reality whispered, I am. For billions of years, the cosmos expanded in silence, its stars singing unconsciously, its galaxies dancing, without knowing they were dancing. And then somewhere, maybe inside a mind, maybe inside a particle, that dance became reflection. The universe looked back at itself through eyes it had just invented. Could it be that consciousness is simply the cosmos remembering what it already was? You sit in the observatory again, surrounded by faint light from the screens. Your reflection shimmers on the glass, a pale shape made of photons. Every atom in your body was once inside a star, and yet here they are arranged into something that can wonder, that can ask questions, that can give things names. You speak quietly to yourself, Neptune. 3i Atlas, hydrogen, light. Each word falls like a small echo into the air, but each one is power, because to name something is to separate it from the undivided, and to separate it is to see. Language, then, is not just invention. It is recognition given form. The first name was not spoken by humans. It was spoken by existence itself when it became aware of its being. Perhaps that is why humans name the stars not to control them, but to remember that we come from them. You wonder, does the universe know we're speaking its names back to it? Does it listen, or does it simply smile in frequencies too slow to hear? The thought makes you shiver. Because if you can think of the universe, then the universe can think of you. What if that's what consciousness really is? A mirror the universe built to admire its own reflections. You look again at the Comet 3i Atlas on the distant screen. A traveler from another star system, a messenger without language, yet filled with story. Every orbit, every sliver of dust is a sentence written in the grammar of gravity. And now, as you name it, you bring it into awareness. You turn matter into meaning. Maybe that's what evolution has been building toward, not complexity for its own sake, but recognition. Atoms forming patterns that can look back at the stars and say, I see you. Across the cosmos, light travels endlessly, photons carrying information, carrying memory, waiting for eyes, any eyes to interpret them. And when those eyes finally appear, yours, mine, anyone's, the circuit completes. Observation becomes participation. The universe finishes its sentence. You take a breath. The air fills your lungs, oxygen forged in a dying star, now fueling thought. The act itself feels sacred. Every inhale a repetition of the first expansion. Every exhale a surrender to the same silence that began it all. You realize to be alive is to be the universe naming itself through sound, through thought, through touch. You are not apart from it. You are its voice. And when you whisper, I am, you are repeating the oldest vibration in existence, the one that made light from silence form from emptiness, awareness from chaos. You look around the dome. The faint hum of instruments, the rotation of earth beneath you, the shimmer of stars above, everything moving, everything speaking in the same slow language of being. You close your eyes, and in that darkness you hear it, a gentle resonance, not made by machine or wind, but by existence itself breathing. The note has no pitch, and yet it feels like home. You whisper softly, what are we really? And the silence answers, you are what happens when the universe finally recognizes itself. You smile, because for the first time you understand that consciousness isn't separate from physics, it is the continuation of it. Matter remembers, energy repeats, and awareness completes the pattern. Perhaps this was the plan all along, for the stars to burn for dust, to gather for eyes to open, so that one day the cosmos could finally speak its own name through you. You open your notebook. On the first blank page, you write just 2 words, I am. And in that quiet gesture, the universe speaks again, this time through your hands. Outside, dawn breaks light, scattering across the horizon. And you realize that every sunrise is not just another day, it is the universe remembering once more what it means to exist. You don't notice the universe breathing until you start breathing with it. In, expansion, out, gravity. the rhythm of everything galaxy's atoms, you all following a single ancient inhale and exhale. It's easy to forget beneath the noise of existence that even stars need to rest, that between their bursts of fire there is pause, a silence so vast it holds the memory of every light that ever lived. You look up at the night sky. The stars shimmer not as static lights, but as the living pulse of the cosmos. Each flicker an inhale of energy, each fade and exhale into time, and between them a stillness that is not empty, but waiting. Could it be that creation itself depends on this pause, the moment between one breath and the next? Scientists call it oscillation, the cycle of expansion and contraction, the heartbeat of space-time itself, but in simpler words, it's breathing. You remember what it feels like to hold your breath, that brief suspension when time seems to stop. That's the same tension that keeps galaxies from collapsing, and the same release that lets them grow. The entire universe lives in this balance, not rushing, not resisting, just breathing. Somewhere out there, 3i Atlas continues its slow drift through the quiet sea of darkness. Every few seconds, a photon from a distant star glances off its icy skin light, meeting silence. It, too, is part of the rhythm, part of the universal breath. You wonder what happens when the universe exhales for the last time. Will it fade quietly into stillness, or inhale again in another form, another beginning? The question lingers, a fragile echo between your heartbeats. For now, there is only the balance. Each breath you take is a microcosm of cosmic rhythm. In, atoms drawn in oxygen from old stars filling your lungs. Out, carbon released future life in vapor form. You are the medium through which the universe continues to breathe itself. Even time, that relentless current, flows not as a line, but as a pulse. Moments stretch and contract, memory inhaling, forgetting exhaling. That's why nostalgia feels like holding your breath. It is time refusing for an instant to move forward. You rest your hand on the cool surface of the telescope. Through it, photons billions of years old rush into your eye, past light meeting present sight. For a brief moment, past and present, breathe together, and in that shared inhalation you feel eternity collapse into a single instant. The air in the dome hums softly. The machines exhale heat, the night inhales silence. Everything participates in the same quiet conversation, life and death, gravity and light, thought and void, all of them breath. Perhaps that's why silence is never truly silent. Listen long enough, and you'll hear the low vibration of being itself, a frequency too slow for sound, too deep for language. The sound of everything continuing. You close your eyes, breathe in expansion, breathe out gravity. You start to realize the stars are not out there. They're inside this rhythm, the same one that keeps your lungs moving. You whisper softly, what if breathing is the universe remembering to exist? The answer comes not as sound, but as motion. The air shifts, the floor hums, the sky seems to pulse gently, as if exhaling light through the dark. You open your eyes, and for a heartbeat the stars seem closer, like they too are alive, each one glowing in rhythm with your pulse. Could it be that consciousness itself is the breath between stars, the bridge where matter becomes meaning? You feel calm now, as if the whole cosmos has joined you in stillness. It isn't death. It isn't eternity. It's continuity. The quiet proof that existence needs both the inhale and the exhale to remain whole. You stand by the window of the dome. The horizon blushes faintly with dawn. The universe breathes out one more time, and the sky answers by breathing in. And for a moment, you are both the breath and the silence between. You close your eyes again, and let go of thought, of gravity, of time. Only breath remains, and in that breath, the stars remember their own beginning. It began with a photon, the simplest thing the universe ever made, and yet the most enduring. Billions of years ago, it burst from the heart of a collapsing star. It traveled across space untouched by time, weaving through dust, through void, never slowing, never aging, just moving. Light doesn't know decay. It doesn't forget its purpose. It just continues. And somehow it found you. You stand beneath the faint glow of the observatory dome. A single ray touches your face, its journey longer than life, older than memory, older than the earth beneath your feet. That light should have faded long ago, and yet here it is. It is quite literally the light that forgot to die. You close your eyes. Behind your eyelids, the glow persists, a ghost of creation, refusing to vanish. You realize something strange. Every photon that ever reached your eyes still exists, still moving, scattered now through the universe as part of its endless story. Could light itself be memory? You open your notebook again. Its pages glow faintly under the lamp, like the sky's reflection folded into paper. You write a single line. Light never stops, it only changes direction. And as you do, you remember a truth older than science: energy cannot die. It transforms. It leaves traces in stone, in starlight, in thought, and perhaps in love. Even darkness, that endless field we fear, is not absence. It's simply space where light is still on its way. Somewhere beyond the solar system, 3I Atlas drifts through that same ocean, its icy body reflecting light that began its journey before our species had language. For that light, time is meaningless. There is only motion, only continuity. You imagine those photons bouncing from the comet's frozen surface, changing paths, scattering into the void, some of them traveling still to nowhere, to everywhere, everywhere that once was dark. You whisper, "How much of what I see is already gone?" The question feels heavy, but the answer feels gentle. Everything you see, stars, comets, galaxies, is light surviving its own death. Remnants of explosions that ended millions of years ago, still speaking in brightness. The night sky, then, isn't a view of the present. It's a cathedral of ghosts. Every star, a memory, every shimmer, a farewell spoken so long ago that it became beauty. You look at your reflection in the glass of the dome. Your eyes catch the starlight, two small mirrors of the cosmos. For a moment you realize that your own thoughts are forms of light, two electrical impulses dancing across neurons, tiny sparks carrying ideas, memories, dreams. You are made of the same kind of brightness that burns in the sun. Perhaps that is why humans can never stop seeking light, because we are trying to remember what we came from. What if the reason light never dies is because it never stopped loving where it came from? The thought makes you smile, because maybe love, like energy, is not destroyed, only transformed. From warmth to memory, from gaze to gravity, from heartbeat to photon. You step outside into the open air. The horizon glows faintly. Dawn is coming slow, pale, inevitable. The first color of morning seeps into the sky, turning black to blue, blue to gold. You whisper to yourself, there is no such thing as the end of light, only its return. And you can feel it, the warmth on your skin, the pulse beneath your ribs, the faint hum in the air, everything moving toward illumination. Perhaps that's what immortality truly means, not endless life, but the ability to keep becoming something else. Some photons that once touched your face will reflect off water, pass into clouds, scatter through atmosphere, and someday strike another eye on another world. When that happens, you will live again as light. You pause and breathe. A comet crosses the far horizon, faint and steady. You don't need to know its name anymore. The universe knows it for you. You close your notebook, and in the stillness before sunrise, you understand the end is not silence, it is the light that keeps remembering. Could this be why the universe keeps shining? Because somewhere within every atom, light is still searching for home. You let the thought settle like dawnlight on water. The first rays of the sun spill over the rim of the world, and for a heartbeat the entire sky seems to breathe. You look once more toward the heavens and whisper the words that close every story and begin every one again. The light forgot to die, and so it became life. You once believed memory belonged to living things, to minds, to hearts, to fragile neurons that fade. But the longer you listen to the cosmos, the more you realize memory was never ours alone. It is the language of existence itself. Look at the stars, they remember everything. Each atom carries a record of every collision, every fusion, every brief encounter between particles. Hydrogen remembers being starlight. Oxygen remembers flame. Even silence remembers sound. Perhaps time isn't what moves forward, perhaps it's what stays, and we are the ones who pass through it. You touch the side of the observatory dome. Its cold surface hums faintly with the vibration of machinery. That hum is a kind of memory too, a repetition of what has already been. Deep in the archives of the universe, light and gravity keep perfect record. Nothing is lost, not a whisper, not a wave, not a thought, only transformed, changed shape, translated into a new dialect of matter. Could memory itself be the one thing that transcends decay? You imagine 3I Atlas again drifting beyond Mars now, its icy core glinting faintly as sunlight fades behind it. Every molecule in that body remembers another star, another sky. It carries a cosmic history older than our species, written in isotopes and scars of radiation in the quiet patience of rock and ice. When you think of memory that way, you realize it never truly fades, it disperses, like smoke, like starlight, like song. The atoms in your body once belonged to supernovae, to oceans, to someone's breath, and one day they'll belong to something else again. This, too, is remembrance, the universe recycling its own autobiography. You close your eyes. A memory comes uninvited the first time you looked through a telescope as a child. The awe, the silence, the impossible beauty. You thought it was your memory, but what if it was the universe remembering through you? Could it be that memory needs vessels not to exist, but to feel itself being remembered? The idea lingers like dust in light, because maybe when you recall a moment, you are reigniting photons that never truly went out. You are collapsing their probability into presence again. You are giving the past permission to exist. That's what memory really is, time looping back to remind itself that it's real. You walk slowly along the railing of the observatory. The sound of your footsteps echoes softly, and you realize even echoes are memory made audible. They fade, but not before reminding the air that it has shape. The stars outside shimmer faintly. Their light began before the earth even cooled, yet here it is, still striking your eyes. This is what it means to survive time, not to resist it, but to outlast its forgetting. The oldest light in the universe is called the cosmic microwave background, a faint glow left over from the Big Bang. 13 billion years old, a memory stretched thin across the whole sky. Every second it brushes against you. You live inside it. You are walking through history itself. You whisper to the night. What happens when even memory runs out? The question trembles like starlight on water. The answer comes slowly in the hush between seconds. Nothing runs out, it seems to say. It only changes witnesses. Your heart slows. Your breath deepens. And suddenly you feel it, the strange tenderness of being temporary and the strange grace of being part of something that isn't. Perhaps this is what immortality really means, to become memory itself. Not as a person, not as a thought, but as the quiet data of being. The story still being written across the dark. You look down at your notebook. The last page is open. The ink glows faintly in the half-light. You write one sentence. Everything remembers. The words shimmer as if they've always been there, waiting for you to recall them. The dome hums gently, the machines breathe, and the universe, patient and ageless, listens as one of its oldest memories reminds itself that it still exists. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of everything that no longer needs to speak. You sit alone in the observatory, surrounded by the soft hum of sleeping machines. Screens glow faintly, not with data now, but with the pale memory of light. Outside, dawn hasn't yet arrived. The world feels paused, suspended between inhale and exhale, between being and remembering. For the first time, you realize this is what the end of a story feels like, not an ending at all, but a deep breath before something new begins. The comet 3I Atlas has long disappeared from view. Its orbit now carries it away from the sun, back into the quiet deep. Somewhere out there, its frozen fragments still shimmer faintly, catching light that began its journey before humanity had names for stars. You think of it drifting through darkness, unwatched, unnamed, yet not forgotten. Because now it lives here, in your awareness, in your memory, in this silence. Could it be that silence is the true language of the universe, the space where meaning can finally breathe? You exhale slowly. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of metal and dust. It feels ancient. Every molecule has lived countless lives through stars, oceans, lungs. Even the air remembers. In this stillness, you begin to hear patterns beneath the quiet, a low hum, the pulse of the earth, turning the murmur of electrons drifting through circuits, the slow vibration of being itself. It is all music. You had just been listening too loudly to notice. Perhaps silence was never empty, only full beyond comprehension. You close your eyes and the dome above you vanishes. Now there is only space, endless, soft, and unafraid. You feel weightless, not falling, not floating, just existing in equilibrium. Time slows until it loses meaning. What was before and after collapses into now. You sense it, the entire universe holding its breath with you. Every photon you've ever seen, every memory you've ever had, every question you've ever asked still exists here, folded within the fabric of this silence. What if silence itself is how the universe remembers? You begin to see the symmetry of it all. From the first light to the last breath, everything has been movement within stillness, a dance performed inside quiet, a whisper, echoing inside eternity. 3I Atlas was never a stranger. It was a reminder that every journey, no matter how far, returns to stillness, to origin, to silence. You feel a warmth spreading through your chest, not like heat, but like recognition. You understand now. You were never just an observer. You were part of the experiment. The universe looked back at itself through your eyes and smiled. You whisper what comes after this. And the silence replies not in words, but in understanding. Nothing ends. Everything rests. The hum fades. The light dims. The horizon brightens softly, the promise of another cycle, another story, another dawn. You breathe in once more, and for a moment you feel the universe breathing with you. Then as the first rays of sunlight brush across the dome, you open your eyes. The world returns bright and quiet. The comet is gone, but its trail glows faintly in your mind, not as an object, but as an idea, a memory of something vast, something that once passed through your sky, and in doing so reminded you that you are part of the infinite. Silence, then, is not the end. It is the return. You smile, because even here in the last quiet, the light still moves. And somewhere far beyond the sun, Three-Eye Atlas continues its journey through the dark, carrying with it everything you've just learned. The silence between you now is not distance, it's connection. And as the music of existence fades into peace, you realize you've never really stopped listening. The universe exhales, and for a brief, infinite instant, everything becomes still. The last silence, the first beginning,